guys, it's Vicki, and today I'm here to share with you my June wrap-up, all of the books that I read in the month of June. And first up, I reread The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and this is one of my all-time favorite books. So of course I loved it, and will definitely reread it again. But for those of you that don't know what this book is about, it is about a young woman named Esther Greenwood, and it takes place in the 50s era. And she is going through a difficult time. She is struggling to transition into like adult womanhood, and she's struggling with depression, and the book basically chronicles her mental breakdown. What I think is so fantastic about this book and what makes it so good is the writing. Sylvia Plath is, first and foremost, she was a poet, and it definitely shows in her writing. It's just so beautiful. Because it's beautiful, but it also has this edginess to it that I think, especially for the time, was just very cutting edge and awesome. And it's a book that I definitely, as I read it every time, I find other passages that stick out to me. And I'm not really one to write or underline in my books, and this one, there's a lot of underlining and things in it because the writing is just that good. I'm actually going to share a little passage with you that is one of my favorite passages, and it's basically her talking about how she's kind of at a crossroads in her life where there's a bunch of different paths that she can go to, and she's not really sure where that direction is going to go. So let me just read this to you. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was E.G., the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila, and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions, and another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest, and as I sat there unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one they plopped to the ground at my feet. So, just beautiful writing, just awesome. I should note that if mental illness or suicide is a trigger point for you, just be aware of that before you read this book, because it definitely touches on those topics in a very, like I said, very raw, just realistic way. And I think because Sylvia Plath herself struggled with mental illness. I think it's common knowledge that she committed suicide. But in particular, the events that Esther Greenwood goes through in this book were events that Sylvia Plath herself went through. So it's very almost autobiographical. If you have not read The Bell Jar, I would definitely recommend it. It's a beautiful book, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finished Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams, and this is a play, and this was a pick for my local book club, so we have read the play this month, and we're going to watch the movie next month. And basically it takes place in the 50s in the South, American South, and it's about this very dysfunctional family. This play is full of greed, lies, bratty children, and like I said, just very dysfunctional people. And I thought that it was a good play. I wasn't super engaged in the plot. The plot is basically that this family, the patriarch is dying, and the two brothers are kind of in line to get the plantation, like who's going to get the plantation. And so there's a lot of family drama. And I wasn't super engaged in the plot, though there was a particular scene in Act 2 between the one son, Brick, and his father, Big Daddy, that I thought was very good, where they're kind of having a conversation and they're serving some hard truths to each other. I thought that that was good. I think that I would like this a lot more if I saw it performed live on a stage, because there is so much emotion behind what's going on that it's hard to convey when you're, reading it in play format. And so I think that as a play it would be really good. But reading it, I just wasn't super engaged. And like I said, all of the characters, all of them, were just messed up, unlikable. You're not rooting for anybody because you're like, you're all just screwed up. And there's just some pretty horrible things that happen that are said between the family members and things that you're just like, wow. But I feel kind of bad because I feel like most people like love this play and give it like 4 or 5 stars, and it was just a little bit underwhelming for me, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished in June was The Fireman by Joe Hill. And I'm not going to go into too much about this because I did a full book review of this book. So I will link that video down below if you're interested in knowing like my full thoughts. But basically it is a post-apocalyptic plague story, and I did enjoy it, though it's not my favorite Joe Hill book. That book remains to be Nosferatu for sure. But it was good. There were things I liked about it and things I didn't like about it, and I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Fairest by Marissa Meyer, and this is book like 3.5 in the Lunar Chronicles. It's just a little novella. And it's a kind of like sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian series that basically chronicles different characters that are loosely based on fairy tale characters like Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel. And this book basically gives you the backstory of the evil queen of the series, Lavanna. So she's kind of like the evil stepmother queen in Snow White. That's probably what she like equates to. And so this gives you, it takes place years before the actual series begins, and so it's like a prequel type thing. And it just gives you kind of her early life story and how she became the evil queen. And I thought that it was a pretty good book. Like I said, it gives you some really good insight into her motivations and why she is the way that she is, which is great. And I also liked that in this book you see some of the beginnings of things. I don't want to like spoil it for anybody that haven't read the other books, but there are things that happen in the other books in the series, the first 3 books, that in this book you see kind of their beginnings and how they came to be. Big things, really. And so it was kind of cool to see that, how they started out, and have kind of evolved over the years. I didn't think that it was like a super awesome read. I think that the 3rd book, Cress, is still the best book so far. I have yet to read Winter, which is the last book. I'm really excited about that, but to me this wasn't like better than the first 3 books or anything. It was just a kind of a nice little supplemental thing to read if you like the series and you wanted to just know more about Queen Lavanna. But like I said, it wasn't by any means like mind-blowing, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The last book that I finished in the month of June, I actually just finished last night, and that is Little Bee by Chris Cleave. And like I said in my TBR video, I went into this book blind, not knowing anything about the plot, because the blurb on the back is very vague, and my grandma gave me this book to read, and she was also very vague about what the book was about, so I went into it blind, and so I'm going to try to kind of keep that little trend going and not reveal too much about the story, other than I will say that it's about a young girl named Little Bee, and she is from Nigeria. And then there is a woman named Sarah, and she is from the UK. And their 2 lives kind of collide one day in this horrible incident that they live through together. And then a couple of years later, they are reunited again under kind of crappy circumstances, and they are trying to assess and come to terms with their new lives, basically. Overall, I thought that the major themes of the book were pretty thought-provoking. It deals with things like, 3rd world versus 1st world, cultural differences, social injustice, things like that. Very like thought-provoking stuff, but I felt that the plot was just okay. There were things about the plot that to me were a little too convenient, coincidental maybe, where it kind of came across to me as a little bit like, just like not believable. And the story is told through both women's eyes, Little Bee and Sarah, and so it alternates between them. And I really think that the book would have been much better if it had just been told through Little Bee's eyes. I found myself kind of just trying to work my way through Sarah's sections. They just weren't as, to me, they just weren't as like engaging. I didn't care as much about her story. I definitely cared more for Little Bee. I thought Little Bee was a great character for being so young. I believe she's like 15 or 16. She is very insightful, and despite all of the horrible things she's been through, she's strong and she's kind. And there was actually a quote in here that I wanted to share because it just kind of, to me, it was just a beautiful quote and kind of encompasses what Little Bee was about and what she was about as a person. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Here we go. I ask you right here, please, to agree with me that a scar is never ugly. That is what the scar makers want us to think. But you and I, we must make an agreement to defy them. We must see all scars as beauty, okay? This will be our secret. Because, take it from me, a scar does not form on the dying. A scar means I survived. So like I said, she's very strong and wise for being this young girl. And like I said, the plot just didn't really do it for me. Like I said, I think it would have been a much better book if it had just been told through Little Bee's perspective. But overall, it was good. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. And I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in the month of June. It was a pretty good reading month. Nothing that, really blew me away, other than my reread of The Bell Jar. But still, a good reading month overall. And please let me know in the comments if you read any of these books and what you thought of them. Because, yeah, like I said, some of them were pretty underwhelming to me, so I would love to hear some various opinions. But other than that, that is all I have for today, guys. I just wanted to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great week. And if you haven't and would like to, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!